Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to announce today that in my time in office, we have now returned over $1 billion to Illinois citizens, businesses, nonprofits throughout our state. Let me say that again. We've returned $1 billion. This record-shattering amount is the largest amount returned in a similar period in the program's 58-year history. We achieved this historic milestone by working collaboratively with our staff and with Democrats and Republicans in the Illinois legislature. I want to emphasize these working relationships. We were able to build the best unclaimed property system in the history of Illinois because we focused on cooperation, getting results, and goal setting. We didn't worry about politics or partisanship. These are more than words. The numbers, the data, the improvements, we made unclaimed property create a faster, better, and more efficient service. What is unclaimed property? Unclaimed property refers to property or accounts within financial institutions or companies in which there typically has been no activity for several years. In Illinois, the State Treasurer's Office is tasked with safeguarding unclaimed property, such as unpaid life insurance benefits, forgotten bank accounts, and unused rebate cards. We fight to return unclaimed property no matter how long it takes. We have great stories to tell. We have stories like the Chicago area woman who adopted two children after their family perished in an auto accident. Years later, we obtained more than $100,000 for the woman's children after auditors discovered an unpaid life insurance policy. There simply was no one around who knew the insurance policy even existed, as we suspect the insurance company knew the birth mother had perished in the accident. Stories like a Chicago man, World War II Army veteran, and lifelong bachelor who left $2 million to several Chicago area philanthropies. These monies were from an investment account that languished because the decorated soldier's only living relatives passed away before he did. Stories like the Carver Community Center in Peoria received $19,000 from the Richard Pryor Foundation. The legendary comic is a Peoria native who spent time at the Carver Center as a youth. Natural turnover at the foundation innocently led to a forgotten bank account. Yes, the claims involving big money always make for great stories. And yes, most individuals who have big money claims do not want to talk about that for obvious reasons. However, I am most proud of the work we do to help everyday people reclaim their property or money. When I came into office 5 years ago, I inherited a cumbersome, paper-driven system. I heard lots of stories of people who didn't want to claim their money because of the hassles involved. I also inherited the all too familiar stories of frustrated men and women trying to receive what is rightfully theirs, only to give up because the unwieldy process simply outweighed the value of the property and of their time. So that's where we started. First, we replaced a 16-year-old computer system. You cannot improve a program with outdated infrastructure. Then, we worked with others to change state law that governs unclaimed property to make it more consumer-friendly. It was the most significant revision in 50 years. Then we turned our site inward. We advanced our move away from paper, created a new web portal that could accept electronic documents, and instituted electronic claims. Then we worked with rule makers and lawmakers to create the Fast Track program that allowed automatic payments of qualifying single-owner properties of less than $500. With that success in hand, and the ability to show people these automatic processes can work, we created the Money Match program, which automatically returns simple claims of up to $2,000 when we can match state records with the unclaimed property and its owner. We made smaller, but no less significant changes as well. We improved our direct mail program because, big surprise, some of our residents were skeptical when they received a letter that said, "I'm from the government and we have money for you." We added a chat function to our website that mirrors the best practices of the private sector. We raised Fast Track from $500 to $2,000. We made it easier to reclaim property of family members who have passed away. These small incremental steps are evidence of how government can work when we focus on public service rather than partisan politics. Our data shows 1 in 4 Illinois residents has unclaimed property, and the average amount is around $1,000. Now, to see if you have unclaimed property, you can go to IllinoisTreasurer.Gov, click on the ICASH button, and see for yourself. Searching our database is free. $1 billion. I would say that's a good day. I'm happy to share this news and to take your questions.
Again, this is just for since you've been in office?
Yes, okay. Since I've come in office return, about $1 billion. The highest comparable period was about, property return was about $700,000.
Has there been an increase in the amount of lost property during that time?
Yeah, so part of the legislation we passed is a revision to the unclaimed property statutes, which has brought more money in, and we've been allowed us to return even more.
Any reason fiscal year 19 had a big jump? Is that when that happened, that particular law change? Can you kind of explain why? You know, it seemed kind of somewhat consistent with 16, 17, and 18, but there was a...
So part of it is it tracks with changes in state law, which brought in more money. But if you look, every year I have been in office, we have broken records. 155 million was the record when I came into office. We passed that. 159, we set a new record. 180 million was new record. 239, we smashed that record through some of those changes that I just talked about. Fortunately, fiscal year 2020, the last 3 months of that year were affected by COVID. We sent our employees home. It took a little while to retool, but now our employees are up and running. They're either working from home or coming in and working at distances within the same building safely, and we are now seeing more claims processed than in the past.
What are the biggest items that you think are being claimed? The life insurance policies, or is it coins that are sold, or other things that may have a monetary value but have not yet been translated into money?
Yeah, I would say the safe deposit boxes provide some of the more interesting stories. Unclaimed property provides a lot of heartbreaking stories about widows and orphans who didn't get money that was promised to them. But this is not just for individuals. We also bring in money for companies, for businesses, for nonprofits, for units of government, and they account for large claims as well.
Could you talk about your staff for a second
Sure.
off topic? What is the status of your people coming back into the office? How many are working from home? How many are back in the office?
Yeah, all of our staff is working, and they have been for some time. We're in an office that fortunately doesn't have a lot of public interaction, and that's allowed a lot of our people to transition to work from home. Now, we had concerns about productivity, but if you look at our results, whether it be unclaimed property returned, new college savings accounts created, more dollars managed, we have seen good results and been very productive as a result of going through this. Now, we sort of also maybe had a canary in the coal mine. We saw in early February potentials for problems. We saw the potential to maybe have people work from home, and so we started having people work home in small numbers to work through some IT issues, to work through some HR issues, make sure they could work, that their internet and their cell phones were working fine. And so, as you know, when we had an employee in our office diagnosed with COVID-19, we were able to send all of our employees home, and they began working from home immediately. So the majority of our employees right now are working from home. We're able to monitor their work remotely, and their productivity has been good. And for those who need to be in, we've made sure that they are safely distanced and spread out throughout our offices.
Do you see that as a permanent thing in the future? Working from home as opposed to coming in the office?
I think when there is a vaccine, when we have finally knocked down this virus, we're going to see a lot of people returning into the offices. We're not going to rush them in, because as we've seen in other states where they rushed to open up, you've seen skyrocketing infection rates. You've seen hospitals in Arizona and Florida and Texas, in some cases, overwhelmed. So we don't want to contribute to that. But like I said, when we get a vaccine, we'll return back to a more normal. But in the meantime, our employees are working productively remotely.
Off topic, you were part of a Chamber of Commerce event a couple of months ago. Daily Herald reports that you talked about the progressive income tax and the possibility of a retirement tax. Can you elaborate on that? Can you clarify that? What's your position there?
Yeah, let me clarify that. So they have a long-held position that I think was misrepresented by another organization. So I think what we talked about was the progressive tax and how that would only affect about 3% of taxpayers out there. Taxpayers making more than $250,000 a year. That's something I support. What we were talking about when we talked about retirement income was people like a university doctor at a teaching hospital drawing about $500,000 a year in pension income. Talking about a retired university official, retired at age 55, drawing $400,000 a year in pension income. A retired superintendent in the suburbs who has been accused of financial irregularities, drawing $350,000 a year in pensions. That's what I was talking about.
Is there the lowest you went there was 300,000. Is there a cap, so to speak, that you think that the state should tax retirement?
So the General Assembly and the governor have already set rates, and those rates do not require any taxation on retirement income. What they show, the fair tax, is that people making over $250,000 a year would be paying more. 97% of Illinoisans would be paying less.
So ultimately, you're saying by default, how it's set up, that if somebody is bringing in that much, even if it's in retirement income, they will be.
No. No, the General Assembly and the governor made it clear what the rates are and who it would apply to.
And it does not apply to.
It does not apply to retirement income.
Okay, so you're just to clarify, your position.
I was not pushing for that taxation. I was talking about an organization that for years has argued for reducing pension benefits, and then was taking this seemed to be the opposite contrary opinion. An organization that was looking to defend the rights of people making $500,000 a year, $400,000 a year, $350,000 a year, and pointing out what seemed to be hypocrisy.
And then, also off topic, all the dust up with ComEd, Public Official A, your reaction to Democrats saying the speaker needs to step down from leadership positions, not just of the Democrat Party, but also as Speaker of the House. Where do you stand on that as a leading Democrat in the state?
Yeah, I think it's clear the speaker needs to cooperate with any investigations going on. The public demands transparency and accountability.
Should he step down as leader of the party?
I think it's incumbent upon the speaker to cooperate fully. I think when he has had members of his own caucus indicted, he's been very clear where he stands.
And then when it comes to the progressive income tax, there's been questions, even the governor was asked this last week. Do you think that the cloud of corruption around people who've already been indicted or even pled guilty, the cloud over the speaker, do you think that that's going to impact negatively the constitutional amendment question this November?
Oh, I think the voters can judge the merits of this constitutional question by itself. I think that it will have strong support. I think this is something that most other states and the federal government are currently doing, and the federal government is doing for over 100 years. I think it's the right thing to do.
You've obviously been in Springfield for quite a while, and you know the ethics and unethical activities that could happen. There are talks about lawmakers coming back to finally do some of those ethical reforms. Do you think that's needed, and should they come back for a special session? If you were still in that role, do you think that's necessary?
I think when the General Assembly comes back, ethics is a topic they should definitely discuss.
Last question.
Oh gosh, budget situation. I know you don't necessarily send out checks to pay for bills. Of the state
Yep,
or
that'd be the
whatnot,
comptroller.
but, you definitely deal with a lot of the investment side of things when it comes to handling some of the state's assets and whatnot. It's not going to be pretty from all accounts.
No.
The federal government still hasn't really shown their hand as to what they're going to do for a next stimulus package. Is it responsible to continue forward with the budget that's been put in place, relying on that $5 billion that has not materialized?
Well, I think what's very clear is the federal government needs to take some action. We haven't seen anything. We've seen the sides far apart. I think that has contributed to states' problems, not just Illinois. Contributed to states' problems, and we saw and learned this lesson from the last Great Recession. The federal government needs to come in and do something. As I said, this is not a problem just with Illinois. Every state in the country has seen a reduction in tax income coming in, and they've seen an increase in healthcare expenses going out. What that means is lots of states are going to have to face really tough decisions. They're going to have to involve things like layoffs and significant cuts to state services. And if the federal government can't come back together and find some sort of agreement to help the states in the next few weeks, then I think the governor has to exercise some control over the budget to make sure that it ends up balanced.
Should the state take this as an opportunity to reform spending practices, to completely shake things up and to reevaluate, instead of spending more and more and more every year?
I think when the General Assembly passed the budget, it was contingent upon federal help, and the governor said that if that federal help does not arrive, he will need to make cuts to the budget, and that is the governor's job.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you all.
Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. And while you're at it, please leave us a comment. Thank you for watching.